Welcome again to another cheapwinefinder.com wine review podcast. It's always a companion to a review we've written on the cheapwinefinder.com website. And what do we have today? And what we do have today is the Rodney Strong Charlotte's Home Sauvignon Blanc, Sonoma County, 2021. The Charlotte's Home in the name, I have no idea what that means. They don't really mention it again. And since the grapes are taken from about 6 different AVAs, I think, 87% or 80 is from Sonoma, 88%, 12% is from Monterey. To have Sonoma on the label, and it does have Sonoma on the label, you have to have 85% of your grapes from Sonoma. So that's how it is. I mean, that happens all the time. You can have 100% Sonoma, but you can also do other things too, especially when this is a wine I got found for $9.99 on sale. Anything else, if they can find a few grapes that are less expensive, fine. Just because they're less expensive doesn't mean they're any good, especially in this price range. But take a sip. Rodney Strong was a Broadway dancer and choreographer way back when, in the heyday of Broadway, more or less, who, when he retired, went to Sonoma and bought a vineyard back in the days when you could do that when you retired. Nowadays, you need syndicates to buy a vineyard. You need everybody buying a share. Things are expensive. So people started back in 1959, had started on everybody. And for the last 30 years, the Klein family has been making Rodney Strong vineyards wines, and they are well known and well respected, and this is their entry level, but this is entry level with a few upgrades, as it were. 15% of the Sauvignon Blanc underwent malolactic fermentation and was fermented in French oak barrels, 100% new. The typical Sauvignon Blanc, especially in the Loire Valley and the New Zealand style, in this price range, is 100% stainless steel. These are young, bright, fruit-forward wines. You can taste it. It's got brisk acidity, flavor, fruit and citrus everywhere. Now, 15%, 85% of this wine is made in that style, but adding 15% does change the character of the wine. You know, if you ever look in red blends, like there'll be 1% of this and 2% of that, and you know, why bother? And I always say, if I asked a winemaker why they did it, it says everything changes what the final product is. So 15% is significant. I'm going to take another sip here. Malolactic fermentation is something that happens in red wine pretty much every time. And it's rare to have a non-malolactic fermentation of red wine. And it happens, at least partially or all the way in Chardonnay and Chenin Blanc. But it's not so prevalent in Sauvignon Blanc. Most Sauvignon Blancs you want to be bright and fruit forward. And the malolactic fermentation takes the tart acid that naturally occurs in the grape and rounds it off. So you get more rounded flavors. And 50% oak in the fermentation process. It's not the same as, because these wines are not aged a long time. So whatever aging there is minimal. But that oak, that you're getting oak influence while it's being fermented, at least 15% of it. And that's going to change the character of the wine. So I always thought that like Loire Valley Sauvignon Blanc, Sancerre, New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc tastes like a spring day in a bottle. I mean, it's just bright and sunny and fruit forward. The Rodney Strong Charlotte's Home Sonoma Sauvignon Blanc 2021, I had to look it up. Tastes like a fall day. It's like it's at the end of the harvest. The flavors are rounded off. Everything's come to completion. Everything's fully ripe. Everything's a little darker. It's still nice. It's still beautiful outside. Fall days are every bit as beautiful as spring days. But it's different, and that's kind of intriguing for a wine I got for $10. I'm gonna take another sip. So if you're into Sauvignon Blanc and you want something unique from the U.S., U.S. Sauvignon Blanc I've noticed is getting better. We did a SB from Charles Smith Wines. It was one of my favorite wines of the year so far. Of Sauvignon SB stood for Sauvignon Blanc. But sometimes they're kind of like in the middle somewhere. They're not bad. They're not good. They're not excellent, but they're pretty good. But they don't hit the heights. This one is really a whole different thing. It's something you need to taste. If you're into Sauvignon Blanc, you're going to want to try this. You want to know what that little bit of oak does, what that malolactic does, how it changes things, and how it actually makes for a really great wine. I'm going to take another sip and we'll tie this thing up, because this was a wine I wasn't expecting and I really enjoyed it. Okay, here comes the part where I ask you to like us where you like your podcast. I don't even know where that button is. I can tell you where to look at it. But if you find it somewhere, just push it. And that's it for me, Domain Dave from CheapWinefinder.com. This was the Rodney Strong, Charlotte's Home, Sonoma Sauvignon Blanc 2021. I think the next we have is a $10 Cabernet Sauvignon that got 90 points in a leading magazine. So we're going to try that in a few days. So keep it cheap, stay warm or stay cool depending on the weather. And I'll be talking to you. Adios. Keep it cheap. Bye-bye.